Hi, everyone. I'm Alex with GSV. Thank you guys so much for tuning into today's Startup Academy session on building AI products. Before I introduce our wonderful speakers, just a quick background in case it's your first time tuning in. GSV started the Startup Academy webinar series last year, really to bring on industry experts across EdTech to provide insights and support to all of the early stage entrepreneurs in the ecosystem. I want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors, Cooley, for making this all happen and who you'll hear from at the end of this session. And then just a quick shout out. Many of you who are tuning in are building AI products for education, including our two amazing speakers who are on today. And we have, in case you haven't heard, the GSV Air Show, which will be in San Diego, April 13th to 15th, where we'll have over 10,000 educators, practitioners, and it'll really be the nexus of all things AI and education. And we'll have, all the best AI EdTech companies exhibiting, including our two companies that are joining us today. And we will hear a special, little performance about it later from Arun, who is on, so you won't want to miss it. But yeah, without further ado, really excited to introduce our two speakers. We have Rajen Sheth, who is the founder and CEO of Kyron Learning, and Arun Saigal, who is the founder and CEO of Thunkable. Thank you guys both so much for joining today. Let's just quickly, if you don't mind, just a quick intro and background on your companies in case people tuning in don't know what they are, which I'm sure they do. But Arun, do you want to start?
Sure. Alex, thanks so much to you and the whole team for having us here today. And we appreciate your team supporting this. Very excited to be here today. My name is Arun Saigal, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Thunkable. We are the no-code platform to build native mobile apps. We are one of the largest ways that kids and schools learn how to code. So if you don't know how to code and you want to build a native iOS or Android app, you can use our software. And it's based on a drag and drop visual blocks-based programming. And so it's a really great way for first-time coders and even seasoned coders to actually come in and learn to build without worrying about where your semicolon goes, but instead learn the important computational thinking concepts that matter: if, else, for loops, while loops, etc., putting it all together. And the end result, rather than for being some goofy thing that you can't do much with, is an Android app or an iPhone app that you can actually share with your parents, publish to the app stores, and get live for the world to see.
Amazing. Rajen?
Well, thank you, Alex, for having us on this, and looking forward to talking with everyone today. My name is Rajen Sheth, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Kyron Learning. And we're built on this idea of how do we empower educators to be able to scale their impact and make it such that more students out there can have equitable access to great educators. We're building a platform by which educators can build videos that feel conversational. And what I mean by that is these are videos where the teachers can actually ask questions to the students. The students can answer that. The teacher says the right thing, and it feels like a one-on-one tutoring session. We've started with fourth grade math, and it's been deployed in schools across the nation, but now actually opening this up as a platform for any educator or any company or organization to build upon and utilize AI and multimedia video AI within their product.
Yeah, that's amazing. So yeah, I would love to just dive into questions with both of you. Obviously, you're both very much at the forefront in building AI into your products. Just to even take a step back, if we think about large language models, generative AI, specifically in the education sector, what types of problems do you feel like they are, like LLMs and generative AI is best at addressing today? And then we'll do a look into the future. But right now, I guess, Arun, you want to start?
Sure. So if you think about the last year of what we've seen from generative AI and LLMs, people have started using it, initially basically as just a more advanced version of what a search engine would give you when you were in school a few years ago. So if you have factual questions, before you might search for some bullet points, but now it's a little more human, a little more informative. Right now you get, instead of just saying, hey, give me a few bullet points from an essay, you're actually getting, in essence, a first draft of an essay. And so that's kind of how you're seeing folks use it. And it's and it's really giving you a bunch of good factual information in a much more digestible, consumable way than it ever really has been. What then is interesting there is that you see Gen AI being particularly good at creating things. So, for example, if you take environmental science, it's extremely good at creating content, curriculum, etc., for environmental science classes. It's also really good at solving the AP environmental science test. There's a bunch of details, a bunch of facts there. It's pretty, well documented and figure out. And things that are fairly easily Googleable are now fairly easy to actually see and understand through LLMs. And in kind of, if you look at where it's going a little more, I think as it's evolving, you're seeing people starting to realize that they can actually ideally solve this, this forever sought for solution of needing personalized learning, right? And how do you actually scale personalized learning? So one of the challenges I worked on early in my career in EdTech was around how can people remember things well, and using a technique called spaced repetition. But now, rather than for me, the student and the learner, working with the teacher to come up with exactly the right program for me and the way I learn, ideally the generative AI solutions will actually be able to work with me one-on-one and give me the best possible path to get the best possible outcomes for myself. And so I think, kind of we're, in essence, we're replacing the search engine one size fits all answer and moving towards a world where we can ideally get to customized solutions for every individual unique learner.
Yeah, I mean, that makes complete sense. I guess, Rajen, do you feel like there's anything you would say you would add to that in terms of what else it's really good at addressing today, or even building upon that?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that I'm seeing. I think the context is that this technology is fairly nascent, and it is getting more and more powerful by the day, literally. And but on the other hand, there is a lot of fear within education, particularly within the systems, for actually using this, and a lot of it is justified as well. And so I think we need to kind of think about that to begin with. I think that where it has, I think it's really taken off is tools to help teachers be more productive. So things to help teachers build lesson plans, build IEPs, build worksheets, things like that, because there's a teacher in the loop that can always take a look at what's coming out of this. Accuracy is sometimes an issue with AI right now, and so where you have a teacher in the loop, it makes it such that it's something that that a teacher can work with the AI on. The next frontier, which I think we're now starting to see, to what Arun was saying, is how do you differentiate learning for each student in the classroom. Teachers have a very hard job that, you're standing in front of a classroom with 30 students. Every single student is at a different level. How do you make sure they get the learning that they need uniquely, and they get the feedback that they need? And I think that's the big opportunity. And we're now starting to see that in a lot of classrooms, both in K through 12 as well as in higher ed, to be able to differentiate learning for each student.
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect segue into our kind of next question, which is, you're seeing, like you said, you're seeing a lot of AI teacher tools. You're seeing a lot around, providing AI tutors, or, kind of trying to provide this personalized learning for students. I guess would love both your takes on what you're seeing in the market right now in terms of this proliferation of all these tools, and what do you think stays and again has staying power versus what do you think might fade and it's just a lot of noise. Would love to hear from either of you.
Well, one thing I would say is that I think the things that stay are, one, the things that can fit into the process of how students learn, and two, the things that can provide differentiated value. And so that first part is really important. So, previous to this, I was at Google, and I was leading a lot of the AI efforts for Google Cloud. And we routinely saw situations where we had really amazing AI, but it didn't fit into the process of how people used tools. And so what I think is there's a staying power in being able to integrate into the processes and having the right overall user experience that fits in with teachers and students. And that's what I think I'm seeing right now. And there's a lot that can be built upon kind of the existing LLMs to fit it into the process of school.
Yeah.
I think that's a really, well said, Raj. And I think, as I think about it, right, at the end of the day, it's AI that provides a meaningful impact on the end user's work product, whatever that is. So that's a very, high level statement. So if you think about teachers using AI to quickly assess student performance, or now teaching concepts using a generative AI tools that are now making a meaningful impact, expediting, saving us time and getting us better results. Those are the things that are going to stay around. There's a lot of kind of cool demos that you're seeing right now. You play around with them, you're like, this is fun, but is this actually making a difference? Is this actually making a difference on the end result here? And I think there's a lot of things that's like, okay, cool, this is cool, this is fun, but I'm not learning better, I'm not understanding either faster or more. And I think a lot of those tools that are cool demos, that they'll kind of go away. But yeah, I mean, we're living in a time where AI is proliferating through all aspects of education. And as Rajen said, it's still super nascent. So I think the winners are going to be determined by how well humans team up with the machines or the AIs in a meaningful way that at the end of the day improves their work product.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, so we're talking very high level right now. So I guess if you think about, right, there's obviously a lot of entrepreneurs tuning into this, and I'm sure wondering the same thing that you guys are going through right now, leading organizations. Of, like you said, there's a lot of ways you can apply this technology, and a lot of different things you can do. And so as you guys think about really prioritizing within your organization of where do I leverage this, where do I build it in, either internally in terms of us using it as a team, or externally, to provide for customers, how do you think about that prioritization, Rajen?
Well, so in our case, it is the heart of everything that we're doing, and so we're trying to figure out where does it best apply. And I think that in our case, what we're trying to figure out is how do we apply this in a place where it's going to advance a process within the classroom. And so what we've done is we've actually brought in a lot of educators to understand the teaching process and figure out where does this actually meet the needs. We're also looking at it fairly realistically, and so part of this is that we're using not just generative AI, but other AI techniques as well. And I think that's an important thing, to try to figure out where do you apply the right tool for the right job. I think there's a tendency right now to throw generative AI at everything, and it feels like you can throw it at everything, but it actually isn't the case. And so figuring out tactically where can you put in generative AI that's going to make the biggest difference is key. So an example for us is that we were realizing that many times you need to ask students open-ended conceptual questions, and that's where generative AI can shine. On the other hand, if you want to ask it to solve a math problem, in many cases it actually doesn't shine. It doesn't know how to calculate, and so those kinds of things need to be taken into account when you think about where strategically you want to use it.
Yeah. Arun, where you obviously, you talk a lot about AI no code, and where do you feel like you're kind of integrating it into your no code solutions? Again, has it changed your outlook on no code at all? Would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, we've spent a bunch of time thinking about where, as Rajen said, where are the needs that generative AI can solve? Not just throwing generative AI at everything, but saying, okay, where are the needs that can be solved? And so for us, there's a few different ways that we're actually thinking about AI within the Thunkable experience. And again, Rajen, I think good clarification of, we're talking about generative AI right now, but there's been a lot of AI tools around for many, many years, and we've had a number of those tools already in the platform, and now expanding to the generative side. So I think there's three different ways I think about it. One is AI within the app experience. So if you think about building an app, there's a number of things you can do using AI. Something we've had for a long time: image and object recognition. Take a photo of a thing, tell me what's going on there. Right now, what's cool about about no code tools is you can normally, to take a photo and then go do image recognition, is actually a fairly complex ask. If you're a software engineer, there's a lot that goes into that, using your hardware, taking the hardware, getting an image, sending it off to some server that can analyze it, sending you back the results. With Thunkable, we make it really easy. We say, hey, when I take a photo, do image recognition, give me the result, right? And you can do that, right? So I think there's the AI within the app experience, image and object recognition. We have chatbots, virtual assistants, voice recognition, so speech to text, text to speech, things like that. That's all built in to the platform already. Then there's kind of the the help building your apps. And I think this is where things get really exciting. So one is within the platform. For example, something that we have today is if you say, I want an image here, before you had to go, you'd probably Google, okay, pink and blue roses. You'd download the image. You'd have to check the license. You'd upload it, etc. Now you can go to Thunkable and say, hey, I want an image here, and it should be of pink and blue roses, and we'll be able to generate you an image. Right? That's really exciting. Now that's saving you a lot of time on the things that are important, but maybe it's not a specific image you're looking for, or text. Write me a quick description of this photo. Right? Now you can do things like that. And so now you can start building almost in a conversational way, right? Where you're having actually conversations with the tool and saying, I want something that does this. Can you give me a description like this, et cetera? And that's really exciting and really powerful. And then I think kind of the last piece of that, which is something that we're actively working on, is actually using generative AI to help you generate your whole app. So not just, hey, generate me this image, but actually, can you help me generate a login screen that plugs into a database that does this, that, the other, right? And I think that's really exciting. Now, I caveat that with, I don't think you're going to get to a point where you're just saying, hey, generate me the app, and then I never need to think about it again, right? At the end of the day, you're still going to need to go in, make some tweaks. There's something that might not be understood. So the tools are still really important, but what's great about generative AI is that it helps you kind of get to it helps you with the onboarding, if you will. Now you're getting started is a lot easier. Now you can say, give me an app that looks like this app, that has this color scheme, etc. And then I'm going to go into the tool. I'm going to finish tweaking it. I'm going to still need to plug into the app stores, publish my apps, all of that, right? So that's kind of the AI to help you build your app. And then I think the last piece, which is a lot of fun, is actually thinking about no code to help you build AIs. And by that, I mean, thinking about how can you actually take things that are already off the shelf, that already exist, and then combine them together to make something more interesting and more robust. So we saw someone recently who was working in the lab, working on some hardware, and wanted to diagnose an issue. So they said, okay, I'm going to take a picture. I'm going to speech to text, tell it what I think is wrong. Then I'm going to use Google speech to text to translate it. I'm going to send it to OpenAI, ask ChatGPT, hey, can you see what's going on here? Give me some results. I'm going to take it back. I'm going to get the text to speech in my ear, and I'm going to basically have a virtual assistant that I built using image recognition, using speech to text and text to speech, using ChatGPT. And that would have never been done by this person without having no code tools to do that, right? So if you look at it, I think the three pieces are using AI within your app experience, using AI to help you build your app, and then using no code to actually help you build the custom AI that solves the problem that you actually have.
That's awesome. It's very iterative. It's very much a cycle, which is wonderful. I guess just to stay on this point, right, really thinking about where you build in AI into your products. I guess a big question, Rajen, I'll throw this to you because I know we've talked about this before, but where obviously LLMs are getting better, and you said maybe not the best at math, but they're continuing to improve on all things, especially around accuracy. How do you think about, as an entrepreneur, where to invest in terms of, this tech isn't where it needs to be, so I'm going to invest more, or kind of say, I think these LLMs are going to continue to get better, and let me just bank on that and then build around it. I would love to hear how you think through that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was interesting. For me, it's interesting to put myself kind of in the shoes that I was before at Google, thinking about kind of what were the things how are we thinking about it in terms of a platform that others could build upon. And I think that the lesson I learned there was that as a platform company at that level, there were kind of the horizontal things that we could get to be really, really good. How can we get the general infrastructure to be good? How can we make it so that there's customizability that's there? How can we continue to improve on some of the features? What we were not really good at is thinking about a particular vertical and particular domain of, we're going to solve this specific problem for this type of industry user. And that's a lot tougher because there's so many different industries when you're a horizontal company like that. And that's where I think there's an opportunity with education, is that the more that we as a company can get to know the teacher and get to know the school and figure out what are the features that we build that can integrate well with that and integrate with the user experience there. I think that's where we can really make a difference and really differentiate. And then on the LLM front, I think there's a lot of opportunity specifically to figure out how do we differentiate for that kind of user and make it feel like something that fits well into the teaching experience. So I'll give you an example. So if you type in, for example, you ask ChatGPT right now to help you step through an algebra or a geometric proof, let's say, a lot of times it'll just give you the answer. And you need to do things to make it such that it doesn't just give you the answer, but it not only is going back and forth with the student, but it's doing it in a pedagogically sound way. It's not just leading the student towards the answer, it's asking the right probing questions to get them to where that is. That requires a lot of interaction with educators to understand what works in education versus not. And it's not something that a general platform will ultimately be great at, and that's where I think that customization is going to be really critical. So I think the advice that I would have for everyone out there is that really understand your user, and if you can fit something that fits your user extremely well, that's going to be differentiated.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Arun, any additional thoughts on that?
I think Rajen nailed it. It's all about understanding your user and what is your special sauce, right? I think at the end of the day, a lot of the LLMs a lot of it's going to get commoditized, as you've seen. There's already a lot of open source projects out there, and I think things are getting better at an incredible clip, right? We're having this conversation, 14 months after ChatGPT went live, and after a number of advancements have happened basically in the last year, and things are only going to get better quicker, right? And so when I think about, hey, what do you do custom? At the end of the day, it's what is your special sauce, right? And that comes to what is content or curriculum that you understand better than anybody else? What's data that you have access to that you can train on that's a little more custom? Spend the time on the things that are proprietary to you, that are special to you, and I think the rest you will see, pretty quick movements. I think people either think, oh, it's way too far away or it's coming tomorrow. I think it's somewhere in the middle, in terms of the way advancements are going, but we are moving at a pretty quick clip. And so I think a lot of the LLMs, et cetera, are going to eventually become commoditized, and really it's your special sauce. It's your knowledge of the user, of the student, of the teacher. It's the curriculum that you've built that you see really works. It's the data that you've gathered from having 1,000 conversations. Those are the types of things that are going to be really important. That's the stuff to invest in. And I think the other kind of more generic things around LLMs that you can kind of leave to folks who are building them, because it is moving reasonably fast, and that's something that you might not have any kind of defensibility around versus more your proprietary data and content and knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, to kind of layer in another incredibly difficult question, I'm asking you guys to, really whip out your crystal balls and see the future a little bit. But Rajen, I guess, especially since coming from Google, another massive question for startups as well. We see Microsoft rolling out an AI reading literacy tool, and Google obviously is very involved in the education space, and just all the different big tech players. How do you think about, what, as a early kind of agile startup, what am I best fit to really roll out in this education space versus what do I think maybe some of these big players with obviously a lot of, resources and distribution will roll out as well? How do you try to navigate that?
Yeah, I think it is a very difficult question because it's really tough to tell. And I do think that there is something with LLMs where the LLM keeps getting better, and it almost like automatically starts to get better at a lot of different areas. And so there is that you're contending with. But I think it boils down to the same thing: that understanding of a specific user, meeting the needs for that particular user, and then across the organization, from not only product but all the way through to go to market, figuring out how do you work with that organization, or with those types of users. One thing I know at Google we had relied on a lot is small partners, small startups that were doing really interesting things in very specific niches, in particular industries, because they would understand that user and how to get into that user, quite a bit better. And so I think that is something that, if you think of a large organization, a large tech company, they are very broad. They have a lot of resources, but they're also very broad. And so they need to focus on the things that have the highest dollar value, the highest markets, and things like that. Whereas as a startup, the advantage you have is you don't have to focus on the things that will, within a year create $1 billion business. You can find the areas where you're going to get uptake to begin with, and that's something that I think the large organizations are going to rely on small companies to be able to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Arun, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think if you look at what I talk about with Thunkable, we're all about making passive consumers into active creators. And when you think about these large companies, you're thinking about their platforms are really made as products that they want you to consume. They, at the end of the day, have to come out with a one size fits all solution because, as Rajan said, you have a year to go from $0 to $1 billion. And so, what can we build that folks can consume that kind of will be exactly as we want it to, and uh, and that everyone will use, and that will be great for us. And so what we get to do at the smaller companies are really provide that accessibility so students feel that AI is accessible and they can experiment with it. And it's not just something, it's not a product that they're being fed that they have to consume, but rather they can be creators, they can be experimenters, they can be actively involved and hands-on with these tools. And so in my mind, really, the startups are poised to, as Rajan said, know their users super well, build these products for their users, and make their users be part of the journey, be co-creators, be experimenters, rather than for just passive consumers of what's fed to them from the big companies. And I think especially with AI tools where people think AI tools can solve all their problems and do everything. You want the tool that feels like it was made just for you, that it was designed with you in mind, that it was made perfectly for your situation, and not just a generic tool that kind of is a catch-all everything. And so I think that's actually something that really gives startups power, where, as Rajan said, in many ways, these big companies have the benefit of having these large LLMs that the more people use, the better it gets. They have a lot of proprietary data, as I talked about before, but the startups can make the custom solutions with the end users in mind and with the end users as design partners that will allow them to actually build a solution that feels the most representative of what the end user actually wants. And I think that's incredibly exciting and empowering.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few questions we didn't get to, but we'll roll those over into the Q&A, and we have some great questions coming in as well. Just quickly before I pass it over to Naomi, if you guys could give just maybe like one maybe in your mind less obvious or underutilized application of Gen AI or LLMs, again, either internally for productivity or externally as you think building into your products for your customers. What is maybe something, and again, not asking you to share all your secrets or your secret sauce, but if there is something you're willing to share for the entrepreneurs tuning in, I think that'd be really helpful. Rajan, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think one thing is using LLMs in the creation process. And so, for example, in our case, we're really looking at building kind of these video-based tutoring experiences for students. But what we found is that not only can we use LLMs there, but we can also start to use LLMs in helping teachers with the creation process and make it such that it's a much easier process for them to build one of these. And I think it's similar to the idea of having teachers build lesson plans and things like that. But there are places you can apply LLMs throughout your entire process that may not be kind of the main part of what the student experience is.
That's great. Arun?
Yeah, I think there are two things I'll point out. One is what I was talking about earlier is actually how do you think about using already existing LLMs, already existing Gen AI tools and AI tools, but combining them in a unique way. Often folks I talk to are saying, hey, I got to build this thing from scratch. And it's like, wait, if speech to text and text to speech and ChatGPT and image recognition already exist, can I actually put them together and make a really cool product, a really cool solution that actually solves the need I have without starting from scratch? And I think that's something that's not looked at as much. I think a second thing, as Rajen said, is there are a lot of these kind of smaller problems that people aren't thinking about. Everyone's saying, okay, this is the giant Thor's hammer that's going to solve everything. And it's like, actually, there are a lot of little things that can be optimized. And internally, I know within the company, we're finding all these little things of, hey, can't Gen AI just do this for us? Can't it take this document and make it sound better? Can't it do a lot of things that we don't think about as the major problems and pain points we're trying to solve, but all these smaller pain points that really exist. And then I think, kind of, especially learning related, I think a lot of folks are looking at, hey, can I use ChatGPT to answer all my questions? And as we talked about, coming out with these specialized solutions based on your proprietary knowledge of your user, of your data, of your processes, I think that's really important to actually say, hey, if I have this proprietary information, can I actually build something that does only this one thing, but it does this one thing super well? And I think people are trying to come up with often these catch-all solutions. And I think building customized, verticalized solutions, especially when you think about larger companies that are building these generalized solutions, that's, I think, where you're really going to thrive and see success, is by building something really focused that totally wins in your market, because you know your user, you have proprietary data, you are that user, you have that understanding, and you use them as design partners in this, and saying, oh, how does a dentist think about interacting with this tool? Probably very different than how a teacher thinks about interacting with the tool. Probably very different than how somebody who is a banker thinks about it. And for a Google and a Microsoft, they have to build a tool for everybody, but you get the opportunity to build a tool for exactly your user. And that's extremely exciting and very powerful.
Yeah, that's so helpful. All right. Well, thank you both so much. We will come back for some questions. Again, we have a lot of questions flowing through. But again, huge thank you. I know I learned so much from this conversation. And then, I would love to kick it to Naomi from Cooley, who's going to say a few words. Again, thank you so much to them for sponsoring. But Naomi?
Hello, everyone. Alex, Rajen, and Arun, thank you so much for a really fantastic, thoughtful conversation. I love to see how our discussions of generative AI and EdTech have accelerated, but most importantly, matured so dramatically compared to where we were a year ago at this time. And I know that after an invigorating conversation like that, the last thing that most of you want to have is for a lawyer to walk into the room. But I can assure you that even though I am a lawyer, I am an EdTech lawyer at Cooley, and that means something pretty specific. I work solely with education sector clients along with my colleagues across the firm. And most of you know who we are by now, maybe from our midway events at ASU GSV. But for those who don't, as a lawyer at Cooley, I don't see my job as telling our company clients, including our hundreds of EdTech company clients, what they can't do. Fundamentally, our job is to partner with you to navigate what is an increasingly heavily regulated environment, particularly in the AI space. Almost every day, new laws are being proposed or coming online from different sources that do have an impact on your Gen AI products. So we want to make sure your IP is protected. We want to make sure your client's IP is protected. Any risk is strategic, and also that you can leverage your understanding of the plethora of data privacy requirements to be a marketing advantage. So specifically on the AI front, we have a ton of free resources from experts across the firm. We host curated Cooley EdTech events. And of course, you can always reach out at any time for more specific guidance. My email address is first initial last name @Cooley.com and may@Cooley.com. So reach out anytime.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Naomi. Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, Naomi. That was incredibly helpful. All right, before we roll into questions, because again, there are a lot of questions, so sorry, you'll just have to be patient because this is what I'm most excited for this whole session. But I mentioned the air show before. For those of you who don't know, or just maybe, hearing from Arun for the first time, he is a very talented musician. And he's gonna, drop a few bars. I don't even know what the right thing to say is, but freestyle a little bit on the air show before we roll into questions. So, Arun, you want to take it away?
Sure. Thanks. Thanks again for the opportunity to be here. And I was just given the information that that it'd be nice to talk a little bit about the air show and the summit that's coming up, which I'm super excited about. So one of the things that I do is that I'm a freestyle rapper. So I'm given some information, some context, and then told, "Hey, make up something about these points." So I was just told a couple of points about the air show, and I'm obviously going to be there along with Rajan, and very excited to participate. So thought I'd give you a verse or two about it. Yo, an AI revolution in EDU. That's what we have come to do. Without air, there's nothing we can do. AI is ubiquitous, invisible, and required. AI is now educational life fire. And at the conference, we've got a keynote in Bill Nye. He's not just there for science, but he's now the AI guy. This event is the biggest show celebrating AI in education. In the world, this is the largest innovation. It's a crazy situation. And the air show will be at the heart of our nation. 15,000 educators and buyers together to make magic that will last forever. Tickets are free, exhibiting's turnkey. It's going to be the place that you're trying to be. See both Thunkable and Kyron Learning live there. Together, we will all thrive there. April 13th to 15th, San Diego Convention Center. You will please be there because there will be nothing better.
Hey, that was so good. Oh my gosh. All right. If everyone's not fired up after that, I don't know what's wrong with you. And I think it's pretty obvious everyone's got to be there. And again, we'll probably make Arun rep there as well. So if you wanna encore, everyone should come out and go. All right. Well, that was awesome. That was the best way to start my day, probably the best part of my week. But sadly, we do have to roll into some questions because, entrepreneurs are sending them in pretty rapidly. But again, huge shout out, Arun. That was amazing and got me fired up for sure. Okay, we'll just quickly run through some of these questions. I guess the first one, you guys are obviously building AI products for teachers. A question in here is someone saying they're launching their beta, they're not as well known in the space. What is a way that you guys get teachers excited about trying out some of these AI products? Rajan, do you want to start?
Sure. So I think the thing that I always found is that there are a set of teachers who really want to be on the cutting edge of this and really want to be the innovators in thinking about how to use technology. And I think that's the thing to find. You'll find them, for example, not to keep plugging the air show, but I think that, places like that are really great places to be able to find those educators that are really interested in these kinds of technologies. What I would advise you to do is find a few. You don't need a lot. You need like 5 or 6 that are the early adopters that want to really make their name on these technologies and build something that really meets their needs. And then the great thing about the education community is that it is a very small community. Once a few latch onto it, others will start to take it up.
Yeah. Arun?
Yeah, fully agreed there. I think I was recently at a high school hearing some teachers talk about Gen AI, and one teacher comes out and says, "Oh, this Gen AI stuff, it's all about plagiarism and it's all this, bad stuff that we don't want." And then another teacher came out and said, "Hey, I'm actually really excited about Gen AI. Here are the ways I'm seeing my students actually learn better. Here are the positive outcomes." And at the end of the day, whether or not we like it as teachers, it's here to stay. And so I'm thinking about how to embrace it. I went up to that teacher after, introduced myself, got their card, gave them my card. We're now talking about how we can collaborate. There are teachers across the spectrum. And I think that is a great part of education, is you can get a lot of different perspectives. And I think, as Rajan said, there are a number of folks who are excited about being on the cutting edge and who also recognize that this is where the world is going, and so they have to be there. And so in the early days, it's not about finding a million teachers. Thunkable is in 10,000 plus classrooms now, but we started with one, right? And so you can find the first few teachers who are excited about what you're doing and who have the problems that you are trying to solve. And ideally, they become your early customers and thought partners. And as Rajen said, it's a small community. Once you have those folks using you, the word gets out quickly. When we think about how folks end up using Thunkable in education, they often call us and they say, oh, I knew another teacher who used it. I saw the school nearby use it. Our district started implementing it, so I started working with it. So really the goal is just get those first handful of users and make it a great experience for them. But there are a number of teachers who are excited about being on the cutting edge, and all it takes is a conversation to figure out where they stand. And if they have the problem that you solve and offer to them, you'll be surprised at how welcoming they are. Often because, as Rajen mentioned earlier, as we all know, teachers are strapped for time, strapped for resources, some of the hardest working folks in the country, in the world. And if we're able to give them resources to make their lives better, why wouldn't they take it?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess building off that, another question we have that came in, someone said, they feel like they've built the teacher love, but still getting questions obviously around compliance and safety. And this actually goes back to our last webinar session. And then, right, the hard question of, okay, but then how do you monetize and actually start to kind of climb the ladder a little bit? And so as you guys think about prioritization of, wowing them with AI, the compliance, safety, the ultimate monetization, how do you kind of, go through that in terms of process? Rajen?
Yeah, I think it is complicated, but I do think that that's the right order. First, you need to really find that fit. Where is this fitting? Where is creating value in the classroom, or with a type of student, or with a type of educator, and also really from the very beginning think about the privacy issues, because that could be something that could really shut you down if you don't think about that from the very beginning. And there's a lot of precedent of how you can go about this that actually works well. I think there's an opportunity as well from the very beginning, if you think about privacy, to build it in right from the right beginning. The monetization part is definitely tougher. And I think one of the things that I've seen is actually two big things that I've seen, especially with education. One is really thinking about the value that you're creating and thinking about the monetary value that you're creating. Are you saving time for teachers? Are you making it such that they can do more with less? Are you making it such that the school can do more with less? And also on the other side of it, thinking about budgets and what kinds of budgets are available within the customers that you have, that might be applied to what you're doing. A third thing is to think about channels, ultimately, and that's tough when you're a small company. But then, in education products I've worked on in the past, once you find something that's starting to go, thinking about channels of others that can distribute it for you or integrate it into their products makes it such that you can start to take off more quickly as well.
Amazing. I'm going to get to our last question because I'm excited that this one came in because I sent it to you guys ahead of time too. But, people are wondering, there's a lot around, again, this is actually helpful for me as an investor as well, but thinking about open source versus closed source models. I would love to hear both your takes on this in terms of where have you guys leveraged one versus the other, experimented with them? Do you find that there's a specific time to use open source versus closed source, especially as it pertains to building an education? Arun, do you want to start?
Sure. I think open source versus closed source, it is a great question. I think people are still trying to answer that question. In general, the way we think about it is proprietary closed solutions. They're usually already hosted, already running. They make it really easy to test and get something shipped, right? If you're saying, hey, I want to interact with, ChatGPT already live. If you look at, Google solutions, you look at all of these solutions that are live and exist already, and you want to say, hey, is this thing going to work? Does this interaction work, et cetera? You already have a fully functioning, running generative AI product that exists. And I think that's really great. Often folks say, oh, I need to build the solution. So now I'm going to start from scratch. I'm going to pull this open source thing. And to our earlier points, you don't even know if you have product market fit. Do you have the customer love? And so for identifying the actual solution that you need, the actual user interactions and flows, et cetera, I think using a lot of these proprietary closed source projects that are already up and running and working really well and have support teams, et cetera, are great because it'll allow you to iterate quickly and leave a lot of the heavy lifting to somebody else. And I think that's really great in the early days when you're trying to figure out what are you actually trying to build. I think as you move forward and you know, okay, this is what I'm building, this is what we do, and now you're dealing with some of what we talked about before, the proprietary data or insights that you have, some things around privacy that you want to make sure, hey, I need to know where things are going, where things are hosted, et cetera. Then it makes sense, I think, to go to one of these open source models that you can take, fork, and then kind of build your own version of and iterate upon, because you say, hey, I actually need this model to be very customized for this specific use case, and so I need to actually iterate on it. I need to have access to the source code so I can iterate from there. So in my mind, it's really great to use these closed source solutions when you are testing out, and also when it's not the core product, when it's, as I was talking about earlier, kind of an internal process that needs to just be made more efficient and you want a tool that you can solve it with. That's great to use these kind of closed source models. And then I think when you're actually going about to build your own solution that's going to actually, be the product that you're selling, that you need to be defensible, that you want to put in privacy guards, that you want to put in custom data that you're not trying to share more publicly, et cetera, then it's a really good idea to use these kind of open source things that you can then fork and take in-house.
Yeah. Incredibly helpful. Rajen, anything to add?
Yeah, I think the thing I would add is that it's a trade-off between cost and latency on one side and development speed and specificity on the other side, accuracy. And so the problem with going to an open source model or a smaller model and training it yourself is you do need people that know what they're doing with that to be able to go and actually train a model. And then the second thing is that there's an accuracy trade-off. So for example, if you take some of the 7 billion parameter models that are out there, 7 billion seems like a big model, but it's 1/500th of the size of GPT-4, for example. It'll be a lot less costly and a lot faster. However, it won't answer questions as well without a lot of additional data. One thing, I think the way that Arun described it is really good, because what you can do is start with something that is a larger closed source model. Another option you have is to take some of the data that you're seeing there and train another lower cost closed source model. So start with GPT-4 and train GPT-3 based on what you're seeing. And that kind of reduces the cost and latency. Ultimately, if you have something that is really specific and you have a lot of data around it, using an open source model could be the way to go, because you will dramatically reduce your cost and make it so that you can customize it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, unfortunately, we are over time. I'm sorry, I know I didn't get to a lot of questions, but a huge thank you to Arun and Rajen and Naomi. Another wonderful session. Definitely look out for our next session, which will be in February. And again, like Arun said, you got to be at the air show. If you're not there, what are you doing? But all right, thank you guys so much. This is a great session.
Thanks all.
Thank you.